Arya sat there long after the toast went cold. The soft ticking of the dining room clock mocked her. Each second a reminder that he hadn't looked back, that he hadn't even paused. She wiped at her cheeks with trembling fingers. But the tears kept coming. How could he make her feel invisible and yet so exposed all at once? Her gaze drifted to the untouched breakfast on the other plate. With a sigh, she pushed it aside and rose to her feet, her legs stiff from sitting too long. She walked to the sink and began rinsing the dishes, each clatter of porcelain against steel ringing through the silent house like a distant echo of her broken heart. Upstairs, the scent of his cologne still lingered. His presence haunted every inch of the home, even when he was gone. And yet she didn't know him. Not really. She only knew what he allowed her to see, and what she saw was a man haunted. Arya pressed a palm to the bruise at her temple. It throbbed beneath her touch, but the ache wasn't just physical. It pulsed through her chest, her ribs, her lungs. She turned to the hallway mirror and stared at her reflection. The woman looking back at her was foreign, dressed in silk, wrapped in wealth, but hollow-eyed and scared. "Who are you trying to convince?" she whispered to herself. "Him or you?" The mirror didn't answer. She squared her shoulders and turned away. Meanwhile, Julian sat at his office desk, but he hadn't touched a single document in over an hour. The city buzzed outside the glass walls of his high-rise, but all he could see was her face. That bruise, that damn smile, that softness. He squeezed his temples and leaned forward, elbows on the desk, forehead pressed to cold fingers. Why was she still so kind? Why didn't she fight back? He wanted her to fight. He needed her to be like the others. Selfish, manipulative, false. It would make it easier to hate her, but Arya didn't hate him, and that terrified him more than anything. A knock at the door jolted him. "Come in," he said hoarsely. It was Mason, his assistant. "Your 11 o'clock meeting is here, sir." Julian nodded slowly. "Send them in." Mason hesitated. "Also, the driver you assigned to Mrs. Cross sent a report." Julian looked up sharply. "What kind of report?" "No incidents. She stayed inside all morning, but she looked upset." Julian's jaw flexed. "Of course she did." He waved Mason away and stood, walking to the window. His fingers grazed the glass. Was this really what he wanted? A war he had no real interest in winning? Or was this just revenge disguised as control? He hated her, or at least he wanted to. But hate didn't burn this hot, not this long. Back at the house, Arya wandered into the study, her steps slow, unsure. It was the one room Julian never let her near, but he wasn't here now, and some part of her needed to know. She reached for the doorknob and froze. Was she ready? Her fingers trembled as she turned it. Inside, the study smelled like cedarwood and memory. A single framed photo sat on the desk, turned slightly away. Arya moved closer, her breath catching when she saw it. It was a photo of Julian, much younger, smiling, unguarded, and beside him, a girl. Her own eyes widened. The girl looked like her, or rather she looked like Arya. Same honey blonde hair, same soft features, only colder. Sharpened, predatory. Arya stumbled back a step. Who was she? Why did Julian keep her photo? And why did Arya feel like the air had just been sucked out of the room? Arya couldn't look away from the photo. That girl, the one smiling so effortlessly beside a younger Julian, wasn't just a part of his past. She was a ghost haunting their present. The photo was old, slightly faded around the edges, but well preserved, protected like something sacred or poisonous. Her stomach twisted. Is this her? The woman who broke him? Suddenly the coldness, the walls, the rage, It all made more sense. Julian hadn't just been cruel for the sake of it. He'd been bleeding. And somehow, without realizing it, she'd walked into the middle of his battlefield. Arya set the photo back, careful not to leave any trace she'd been there. She turned to leave, but her eyes caught something else. A drawer. Locked. She hesitated. Then shook her head. No, not like this. She wasn't here to snoop. She backed out of the study and closed the door quietly behind her. But the image burned in her mind. That girl's face, so familiar yet distant like a shadow she couldn't place. Evening. Julian came home later than usual. His jacket hung over one shoulder, his shirt collar open, and his eyes tired. More than tired. He found Arya curled up on the living room couch, a book open in her lap, though her eyes weren't moving. She looked up as he entered, and for a brief second their gazes met, quiet, loaded, unspoken. She stood. There's dinner. He nodded but didn't move toward the kitchen. Instead, his eyes scanned her face again, settling on the faint bruise still darkening her temple. His voice came low, gravel thick. I didn't mean to. She raised a hand gently. I know. But she didn't smile this time. She didn't shrink either. Something in her had changed. Julian saw it, and it unsettled him more than her tears ever could. He cleared his throat. I had a long day. Arya nodded once. So did I. He almost said more, but stopped. Instead, he walked, past her, paused, and added quietly, Thank you for breakfast. Arya blinked. It was barely a whisper, but it was the first real softness he had offered her in weeks. Before she could answer, he was already heading up the stairs. Later that night, Arya stood at the window, staring into the quiet night. She had barely moved in an hour. Her thoughts spun, tangled between the memory of that photo and Julian's almost apology. Who was she really married to? And more importantly, who had he lost? A whisper escaped her lips, barely audible even to herself. Who hurt you so badly that you can't let anyone touch you now? Behind her, a soft creak. Julian stood in the hallway, halfway down the stairs. He had heard her. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there in the shadows, watching her like she was a riddle he couldn't solve, or maybe a ghost he couldn't bury. His hands clenched at his sides, aching with a desire he didn't understand, to go to her, to explain, but the words refused to form. They stuck in his throat, caught behind years of silence and pain. Arya turned slowly, startled by his presence. Their eyes locked again, closer this time, and for once, neither looked away. Julian stood at the bottom of the stairs, bathed in half-shadow, like a man caught between confession and retreat. Arya didn't speak, neither did he, but the silence between them buzzed, heavy, electric, alive with all the things unsaid. Finally, Julian moved. A slow step, forward, then another. He crossed the room like he was approaching a fire he wasn't sure would burn or save him. He stopped just a breath away from her. His eyes dropped to her temple, the bruise now softened into a pale yellow stain against her skin. I shouldn't have pushed you, he said quietly. Arya's throat tightened. But you did. I know. Another silence. Then why did you marry me, Julian? His breath hitched. Arya took a step back, folding her arms across her chest. You don't love me. You barely speak to me. And when you do, it's too... Remind me how much you resent this. Julian's jaw clenched. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Then how was it supposed to be? She demanded, voice cracking. Was I just a placeholder? A punishment? A mirror for someone else's sins? His head dropped. For the first time, Julian looked ashamed. I didn't know it was you, he said at last. Arya blinked, stunned. What? He looked up, eyes haunted. When I said yes to the marriage, when my mother showed me your photo, I didn't recognize you. Not right away. You had changed, grown. You weren't the same girl from all those years ago. She stared at him, pulse thudding. You. Think we've met before? Her voice was faint. Julian hesitated, and then finally he spoke the truth. 12 years ago. There was a summer in Lyon. I was 19. You were 16. You were there with your aunt. Her mouth parted, breath catching. The piano school. He nodded slowly. You played Liszt at the student concert. I thought you were made of sunlight. I thought I could love you forever. Plus subscribed, my Aria staggered back a step, heart hammering. You're the boy who left without saying goodbye, she whispered. The one who gave me that music box. His lips parted. Shock painted across his face. You still have it? She nodded numbly. Of course I do. I kept it, even when I didn't remember your name. Julian sank onto the edge of the couch like his legs could no longer hold him. Arya stepped forward. Julian, I didn't leave you. My aunt, she got a call. My mother was in the hospital. We left overnight. I left a letter with the front desk for you. I waited for a reply for weeks. Nothing ever came. He stared at her, the blood draining from his face. I never got a letter. I sent it. I searched for you, Julian said hoarsely. I thought you vanished. I thought you forgot me. Then one day, I saw you with someone else, smiling, laughing, like I'd meant nothing. Her eyes widened. That wasn't me. That couldn't have been me. But Julian wasn't listening. He was lost in the unraveling of his own truths. I built a life out of hating you. I used your name like a weapon in my head to kill any part of me that still hoped. Arya knelt in front of him, her hand reaching for his. He didn't pull away. She placed it over his chest right where his heart thundered. I didn't forget you, she whispered. I loved you, I just didn't know that it was you. His eyes filled with something unspoken, regret, disbelief, maybe even sorrow. And then for the first time since they were married, Julian touched her. He lifted her hand and pressed it to his lips just once, and in that single moment 1,000 walls cracked. Arya didn't dare move. She was afraid that if she did, the spell would break, that Julian would pull away again, retreating behind the cold steel walls he had mastered for years. But he didn't. Not this time. His hand still held hers. Warm. Trembling. I don't know how to fix this, he said, voice low and raw. I don't even know if I can. You don't have to fix everything, she whispered. Just stop breaking what's left. His eyes closed, a pained sound leaving his throat. I hurt you. Yes, she said, because lying would have been crueler. But I'm still here. Why? He looked at her now, really looked. Why are you still here, Arya? She smiled, heart aching. Because somewhere, beneath all that armor, is the boy who gave me a music box and whispered that I played like the stars were listening. Julian blinked, and something inside him shattered, not painfully, but like a chain breaking after years of suffocation. She leaned closer, her forehead resting gently against his. Let me in, Julian, she said softly. Let me help you heal, even if it takes forever. His hands came up slowly, hesitantly, like he didn't trust himself. Then they cradled her face with aching reverence. I don't deserve you. No, Arya said, smiling through her tears. But neither of us deserved what happened to us, and yet we survived. His lips brushed her forehead, tender, trembling, uncertain. It wasn't a kiss of possession. It was a kiss of apology, of remembrance, of surrender. They stayed that way for a long time, wrapped in silence that didn't hurt this time. It breathed between them like something sacred. Then a sharp knock shattered it. Julian tensed immediately, instinct snapping back into place. He stood, jaw tight. Arya watched the shift in his posture, the shadow returning. "I'll get it," she said quietly. She walked to the door and opened it. Standing there was a woman, tall, striking, dressed in red, and holding a letter in one gloved hand. Her gaze swept over Arya slowly before landing on Julian behind her. "Well," the woman said with a smile that could cut diamonds. "You've been hard to find, Julian." Julian's face went pale. Arya turned toward him, confused. "Who is she?" The woman stepped forward uninvited, dropping the envelope on the table. "I'm the reason he stopped believing in love." Arya froze. Julian's face darkened. "Serena, you're not welcome here." "I wasn't asking," Serena replied, eyes flashing. "You married her, didn't you? I saw the photos." Arya's blood ran cold. Serena looked her up and down. "You really picked a version of me, didn't you, Julian? Same hair, same height, same innocent eyes. But we both know she's not me." Julian's fists clenched. "That's the point," he growled. But Arya didn't hear the rest. She was staring at the letter. Her name was written on it, not Julian's. Her name. She reached for it slowly, ignoring both of them, and opened it. And the words on the page made her breath stop. "To Aria Blake, you don't know me yet, but I know you. I know what he did. I know what he's hiding. I know why he really married you, and I know what he's trying to bury. If you want the truth, meet me at the corner of Kingsley and 9th tonight at 8. Come alone. No one can protect you once this secret is out." Arya looked up. Julian had gone pale. He recognized the seal, a wax stamp, a black swan. His past wasn't done with him, and now it had come for her. Arya's fingers trembled as she folded the letter back neatly, though nothing about the chaos inside her felt neat. She could feel Julian's stare on her, but she didn't. Look at him. Not yet. Instead, she turned her gaze to Serena. "You said you're the reason he stopped believing in love," Arya said calmly, voice steady despite the storm behind her eyes. "Why are you here now?" Serena arched a brow. "Because I don't like loose ends, and marrying him, that makes you part of mine." Julian stepped forward, voice like ice. "You don't get to do this, Serena. Not now." Serena tilted, her head at him with a taunting smirk. "Not now? You made me wait 12 years, Julian. And now I'm done waiting." Arya turned to him finally. 12 years? You said you hadn't loved anyone before." He flinched like she'd slapped him. Serena laughed softly. "Oh, sweet girl. He loved me so hard it almost killed him until I walked away." Arya's heart dropped. "Why?" "Because I wanted freedom," Serena said, stepping past Julian, unbothered. "And he wanted to own everything, even love. I chose myself." Julian's jaw tensed. "You destroyed me?" "No," she said, brushing invisible lint from her sleeve. "You destroyed yourself trying to cage something wild." Arya took a step back, mind spinning. The puzzle pieces were snapping into place. The isolation, the control, the walls he built. He didn't marry her just to punish her. He married her because he thought she was her. A second chance he didn't believe in, but couldn't resist taking. She was a stand-in, a ghost. Her chest ached, but she stood tall. "You brought this," she said to Julian, her voice hoarse. "You let her walk back into our lives." "I didn't, but you did." "The second you never told me the truth," she said, holding up the letter. "And now I'm being hunted for your past." Serena smirked. "You really didn't tell her anything, did you?" Julian's silence was answer enough. Arya looked at both of them, then down at the letter. Kingsley and 9th. Tonight. Alone. Maybe it was dangerous. Maybe it was a trap. But the greater danger, she realized, was not knowing. because living in Julian's shadow would always mean drowning in questions. "I'm going," Arya said, surprising even herself. Julian's eyes went wide. "No, you don't know what's waiting." "Exactly," she cut in. "And I'm tired of not knowing. You had 12 years to bury this. I've had 3 weeks of wondering if I'm the villain in my own marriage." Julian reached for her arm, but she stepped back. "I need the truth, Julian, whether you're ready to give it or not." Without waiting for an answer, she turned and walked upstairs. Julian watched her go, heart slamming against his ribs. Serena stood behind him, amused. "You always did choose women who burned," she said softly. "Be careful, Julian. Some fires. Don't go out. They consume." Arya stood outside Kingsley and 9th, the city's sleek, upscale bar buzzing with the quiet hum of late-night patrons. The neon sign flickered, casting fragmented light across the rain-slicked pavement. She clutched the letter tightly, heart pounding not just from fear, but from fierce determination. Inside, the scent of polished wood and expensive whiskey wrapped around her like a cloak. She scanned the room, eyes darting over shadowed faces and murmured conversations, searching. Then she saw him, a man in a tailored suit, leaning against the bar, his dark eyes sharp and unreadable. The same man from the photo enclosed in the letter. Calm, confident, dangerous. "Are you Arya?" His voice was low, deliberate. She nodded, stepping forward. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows the truth about Julian," he said, eyes never leaving hers. Arya's breath caught. "Then why send me here? Why not talk to him?" He smiled thinly. "Because he's not the man you think he is. And he's counting on you to stay in the dark." A cold shiver ran down Arya's spine. "Tell me everything," she demanded. Before the man could answer, a shadow fell over her. Julian's voice was hard. "Arya, you shouldn't be here." Her jaw clenched. "I needed to know. You lied to me. You kept this from me." He took a step closer, eyes intense. "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" she challenged. "From the past that refuses to stay buried." The man at the bar watched silently, a flicker of warning in his gaze. Arya's world was unraveling, but this time she wasn't going to let it break her. Julian's eyes hardened as he took a step closer to Arya, the tension between them crackling in the thick air of the bar. "You don't know what you're getting into." Arya squared her shoulders, refusing to back down. "Then tell me. I deserve to know." The man from the bar, the one Julian clearly recognized, took a slow step forward. "My name is Marcus. I worked with Julian years ago. There's a lot about his past he's kept hidden." Julian's jaw tightened, but Marcus pressed on. "The man you married isn't the man you think he is. He's been running from ghosts, from people who want to hurt him and anyone close to him." Arya's heart pounded harder. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Marcus looked at Julian, waiting for an answer. Julian finally spoke, his voice low and heavy with regret. "Because some truths don't just hurt, they destroy." "Then maybe it's time those truths came out," Arya said firmly. "I'm not your enemy, Julian, but I won't live a lie anymore." Julian's gaze softened for a brief moment, a crack in his icy armor. "I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," she whispered it. "But hurting me or protecting me, it all feels the same right now." Marcus shifted uneasily. "There are people watching, Arya. If you want the whole story, you'll need to be ready." Julian glanced toward the door, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "We don't have much time." Arya nodded, swallowing her fear. "I'm ready." Julian's eyes darted around the dimly lit bar before settling back on Arya. "Years ago, before we met, I was involved with people, dangerous people, who betrayed me. I lost everything, my family, my trust, my peace. His voice was low, almost a confession. Marcus nodded. Those people never forgot. They're still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment. Arya's breath caught. Is that why you've been so distant? Why you push me away? Julian's jaw clenched. Yes. I thought keeping you at arm's length would protect you, but I was wrong. Then let me in, Arya said, stepping closer. We face this together, or not at all. Julian looked at her, conflicted but something fragile breaking through his hardened exterior. If you're with me, there's no turning back. Suddenly the bar door creaked, and two shadowy figures appeared at the entrance, scanning the room. Marcus's eyes narrowed. They found us. Julian grabbed Arya's hand, his grip firm. We have to move, now. Arya didn't hesitate. The fight for truth, trust, and survival had just begun. Julian tightened his grip on Arya's hand as the two figures advanced through the smoky haze of the bar. Their faces were obscured, but their intent was unmistakable. Back door, Marcus hissed, nodding toward a narrow exit behind the bar. We can lose them if we move fast. Julian glanced at Arya, whose eyes were wide but determined. Stay close, he urged. They slipped through the crowd, moving swiftly but silently. The cool night air hit their faces as they spilled out into an alley behind the building. The street was deserted except for the two men who had followed, them now gaining ground. Julian cursed under his breath and scanned the surroundings. A fire escape ladder clattered just within reach. Without hesitation, he grabbed Arya and hoisted her up, then scrambled up himself. Go! He shouted. Arya climbed quickly, heart pounding in her chest. Above them, the rooftop offered a narrow but clear escape route. The men below shouted curses and pulled out phones, probably calling for backup. We need to keep moving, Julian said, pulling Arya along. I can't let them catch us tonight. Too much is at stake. They ran along the rooftop, shadows flickering beneath the faint glow of distant street lamps. Julian's mind raced. Who were these men? How had they found him after all these years? But one thing was clear. Whatever ghosts from his past that haunted him weren't finished yet, and now they threatened not just him, but Arya too. Julian and Arya reached the edge of the rooftop, breath ragged and muscles burning. Below, the men were circling the building, their footsteps echoing like a drumbeat of menace. We have to jump, Julian said, eyes fixed on the adjacent rooftop, barely a few feet away. Arya swallowed hard, nodding despite the fear knotting her stomach. On 3, Julian counted down, then leapt, pulling Arya with him. They landed hard but safe, rolling to absorb the impact. Julian caught Arya before she could fall, his arms steady and sure. Come on, he urged, pulling her up as footsteps thundered behind them. As they sprinted toward the fire escape, Julian's mind flashed back 12 years. Flashback the rain, pounded down on a deserted street, the neon signs flickering erratically. A younger Julian stood outside a crumbling apartment, heart shattered and fists clenched. Why did you leave me? He whispered to the cold night. The woman he had loved, the one who had vanished without a word, haunted every corner of his life. Betrayal had carved a canyon of pain he swore never to cross again. Back in the present, Julian shook off the memory, focusing on Arya beside him. We'll get through this, he promised, determination hardening his voice. But even as they disappeared into the night, the shadow of the past loomed, waiting for its next move. Arya's heart pounded wildly in her chest, each breath shallow and ragged as she followed Julian through the maze of fire escapes and narrow alleys. The cold night air bit into her skin beneath the thin robe, but adrenaline dulled the chill. Her Minds spun with questions. Who were those men? Why were they after them? And more than anything, why did Julian look so different now? Not the cold, distant man she knew, but someone fierce, almost desperate to protect her. As they reached the street level, Julian glanced over his shoulder, scanning the shadows. "Need to get somewhere safe," he said urgently. Arya nodded, swallowing her fear. She wanted to ask so many things. About his past, about the walls he built around himself, but now wasn't the time. She trusted him, even if she didn't fully understand him yet. They slipped into a waiting car, the interior warm and quiet compared to the chaos they'd left behind. Julian's hand brushed hers for a moment, brief but grounding. "You're not alone," he murmured, eyes dark but sincere. For the first time since they met, Arya allowed herself to hope. Maybe this broken man could be more than a stranger. Maybe they could both find healing in the wreckage. But as the city lights blurred past the window, she knew their fight was just beginning. The car pulled up to a nondescript townhouse on the edge of the city. Windows shuttered, lights dimmed. Julian killed the engine and looked at Arya, his jaw clenched. "This is where we lay low for now," he said quietly. Arya nodded, clutching the edge of her robe tighter. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by exhaustion and a gnawing sense of dread. "Who are those men?" she finally asked. Julian's gaze darkened. "They're not the first to come after me, and they won't be the last. But you're the reason they're here now." She stared at him, heart twisting. "Me? Why?" His eyes flickered with something almost like regret. "Because I didn't want to drag you into this. But they know about us. About you." Cold silence settled between them. Arya swallowed hard. The fragile thread of trust they were weaving felt like it might snap at any moment. But despite everything, the cold nights, the bruises, the silent wars, she wanted to believe in him, in them. Julian opened the door and stepped inside first, glancing back. "Stay close," he warned. Inside, the safe house was sparse but secure. Julian immediately started checking the locks and windows, every movement sharp, purposeful. Arya watched him, seeing the man behind the cold facade, wounded, determined, afraid. "Why do you keep pushing me away?" she asked softly. He paused, then met her eyes. "Because I don't know how to let anyone in, especially not someone I care about." Her heart ached. "Maybe it's time to try." For a moment, the hard walls around Julian's heart seemed to tremble. But just as quickly they steadied. He nodded almost imperceptibly. "Maybe." Outside, the night whispered threats. Inside, two broken souls clung to a fragile hope.